What's up, friends? Michael Munson here, the Mindful Moves Dojo in the Cloud, welcoming you. I'm broadcasting from Little Ethiopia, Los Angeles, on a bright, breezy spring day under quarantine, as I'm sure most of you are, unless you're watching this from the future, in which case I hope you're not. And I think this quarantine, there's a lot to say about it, but I definitely think people are recognizing more the need for mental health as well as physical health, especially in these trying and extremely stressful times. And even though I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and I tend to hold on to my content until it's just so ready for you, so good, I'm gonna put utility over perfectionism, and I think these are really helpful training ideas and practices, and I'm excited to put them in your hands and make them yours. So, without further ado, let's start with the first key idea in Mindful Moves that's going to be important for you to orient the rest of our quest. Yeah, questival. That's kind of the spirit behind this practice. You know, there's yoga, there's martial arts, there's meditation, you know, there's functional fitness. I got a background in all that. But the real spirit, the pathos underneath the logos, the logic is this quest. We're in this process, right? We're always in one phase of process or another. And the more you can orient yourself in that quest, the more efficient you're going to be on it. So let's start there. Let's start with a little orientation device I created. It's a compass. And really, if you zoom out even larger, it's not just a compass, it's a legend. Okay, now what do I mean by legend? I'm not just talking about, you know, LeBron and Kobe over here. I'm talking about the way that you read a map, right? There's that piece on the map that shows you the northeast, southwest, shows you the scale, shows you what roads look like, you know, the divisions between countries, all that, all those details, that's in a legend that helps you read a map. So that's what we need to go over first, this legend to mindful moves. You ready? Let's go. Okay, so here's the key idea that Mindful Moves really revolves around, and that's an appropriate expression because it's solar in nature. It's replicating physics. So we got this planet, right? Planet Earth, spinning around this star. We're spinning on our axis, but we're also revolving around this star. Where you are on our rock, where you are in relationship to that star, changes your experience in life at its most fundamental level. Some of you right now are looking at me in a t-shirt in late March, just like feeling great, guns out, sun's out, feeling real good, and you know, waiting for the gun show to start. You know, there's something there. Anyway, some of you might be even warmer than I am right now. All of that position with the star is fundamentally informing our experience as a human being. So many factors are related to it, we don't even need to get into them, but understand that angular relationship is what it all boils down to. So take a mountain, for example. Say you're looking down at a mountain from space, and say you're looking at the northern hemisphere. Call it, you know, my buddies over in Flagstaff, call it the San Francisco Peaks. You're looking down at the San Francisco Peaks. You got the north side of that mountain, and you're gonna have the south side, east, and the west side, right? Each of those four sides of the mountain are experiencing sort of microclimates where the east gets to see how from darkness the sun rises. The west gets to experience what happens to our star as it plunges back beyond the horizon, bringing us into darkness. The south sees the full force of that fire through the day, and the north, if it's on the north side of a mountain, it's going to be in the shadow of that mountain all day long. A very different experience from somebody standing on the south, cooking under the star, like my backside is right now, versus, you know, the cool, the shade happening on the north side. You follow? So this is the key idea behind Mindful Moves. It's also the sort of architecture in a lot of ancient religious and spiritual systems, the 4 cardinal directions. And so in Mindful Moves, we look at it in terms of angles and opportunities. So in the north, in that shadow, you can either fight that dynamic or you can harmonize with it and make the most of it. Do the most that you can in that spot. Because there are things you can do on each spot that you can only do on that spot. You can't stare at the great west looking for the sunrise and just waiting for that exalted moment where the new day starts. You'll just be wondering, like, do we have a star? Did the sun fall asleep? And then you turn around, that's right, my bad. If you want to watch, okay, you get it. There are unique experiences on each side. Now, those 4 sides are really just representing a full 360-degree area, right? And all of those spots in that 360 degrees, all of those spots in a way you could say are unique. They have their own powers. So, the first thing that we're going to do to orient and to really integrate this idea, this legend, is we're going to do the Mindful Moves Power Quiz. Let's check your powers, all right? In Mindful Moves, there are 12 points representing 12 studies, 12 strengths, 12 skills that ultimately yield personal power. We'll explain more what that's about, but there are different types of power, and you'll notice that these 12 points are broken into the 4 quadrants, so 3 points form one direction or one archetype. So powers and archetypes. Let's see where you're at, and let's get a sense of how this whole compass, this legend, is going to work and help us through our journey. You ready? Let's go. Okay, so here's the quiz. 12 powers. You ready? You gauge yourself. If you want to just do it by ear, if you want to just do the math in your head, that's fine too. If you want to take a second, grab a pen and paper. That's a lot of fun. You see that? You see how cool that is? Thank you. And now, let's get to it, shall we? Let's take a look at your 12, all right? Here are the 12 points. If you want to follow along, drawing with that pen and paper, be my guest. It's kind of a fun thing to do. So you make a circle. Whoop. You divide it in 4, draw that cross, and then you're going to draw 4 more lines. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yours may or may not be as beautiful as mine. Don't feel depressed if it isn't. And then you're going to draw 10 lines up these lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You did it. All right, so you got these 12 points, right? I want you to give yourself a 1 to a 10 for each of these questions, each of these powers I'm going to address. If you're doing this little chart here, making your own compass, your own legend, you just fill in on the number that you give yourself, okay? This is a self-scoring quiz. Here we go. First power, which is right here, number 11. If you're imagining a clock, it's 11 o'clock. Slightly northwest, okay? First question. Rate 1 to 10. Your enjoyment, your ease, your fluency, your comfort, your satisfaction from breathing. 1 to 10. 1 is like it's very, very, very difficult and uncomfortable. You know, I hate to, some folks are dealing with that right now. Just the act of breathing. That's what this virus is attacking, okay? And then you got on the 10 side somebody that it's ecstatic. it's like, oh, it's melty good. It's all day long just drinking those good drugs through your nostrils. Ooh, you breathe well, you breathe right, you take care of yourself, you enjoy breathing, you make the most of that system. 1 to 10. 5, you pay attention, you appreciate sometimes. Under 5, you barely notice it. Above 5, you notice it regularly. You even do stuff for it, okay? Yoga, exercise, meditation itself, breathing practice itself. 1 to 10, where are you at? Punch it in. All right, next, so that's breath. Next one, second, power. And you'll notice that these powers move from skills like breathing to virtues, which are kind of like skills of character. So yeah, we're also checking on the anatomy of your character, and the fitness of it. Okay, next, due north, is ownership. How responsible do you think you are? How much do you really take care of what you have to take care of? If at least this little circle, you take care of what you have to do, maybe your circle's a little bit bigger, right? Maybe it's a whole house. And how well do you hold that ground? And that can mean a ton of things. One thing, for example, is does doing your dishes give you some sort of satisfaction? Using something that you own, taking care of it, cleaning it, returning it, that process, that's what an owner has to deal with, right? How much do you enjoy that? Okay, that's your northern line. How much do you enjoy taking care of your home? How much do you enjoy taking care of your body? The taking care piece, that's ownership, right? It's maybe doing a little bit more, offering a little bit more, and yeah, 1 to 10. How's your ownership? It's also not playing the victim game, as much as you can. You really try to own and honestly acknowledge what you can do. What's the reality, and what are you responsible for? Also, not owning too much shit is a healthy, muscle of ownership, right? Okay, so 1 to 10. Just doing the intro to these right now. Next, at 1 o'clock, here we go. Gauge 1 to 10, movement. How much do you actually enjoy moving? How much do you move actually in a day? How many different ways do you like to move? You may have a few different ways that moving feels nice, like the movement from your bed to the chair to the couch to, the kitchen to fix yourself something. Maybe those movements are okay. Maybe they're not even that okay. Maybe you have more. Maybe you walk, maybe you bike, maybe you run, maybe you train. Whatever it is, how much do you enjoy moving? And appreciate it and do it. 1 to 10. Okay? Next. Here we are. We're at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Gauge 1 to 10. Now we've moved out of the northern sector, those 3 in that quadrant, those 3 powers. Now we're entering the powers of the east. Okay? Gauge 1 to 10. Your honesty. How honest with yourself? How honest with your world? Do you really savor and appreciate and prioritize that feeling of truth ringing inside? The heartstrings are ringing with truth. Whether it's your verbal expression of it or just as a priority of something that you experience. How important is that honesty for you, that transparency? You don't want to lie to yourself. You don't want to delude yourself. You don't want to get stuck in some sort of illusion. You want to see it as it is, even if it's a little ugly. All right, 1 to 10. Got it? Next. Número 3. This is due east, right? This is this direction over here. Healing. So we move from a virtue, right? Honesty, a strength of character, to a skill, the actual skill of healing. when you get sick, are you able to take care of yourself? Do you know how to huddle up, warm up, feed yourself warm things, and hot liquids and take care? Support that healing process. So ownership, sort of like the North, sets up the scene and makes sure that you have all your shit together so that you can, in the East, really offer that TLC, accelerate healing. Healing is natural. If you have a decent setup for it, healing is inevitable, but it can be accelerated or it can be impaired based on things that we do, choices we make. We know this. So how rapidly do you repair? How slow is it for you to, heal, whether it's a cold, a flu, or an injury? What's that like for you? So if you're really quick, if you take care of yourself, you go through it, you're going to be higher up, 5 to 10. If you just hate it and you get miserable and then it lags and you don't take the time, you're going to be below 5, okay? It's also about how you do that for others. You can't give yourself a 10 if you're just so good at self-care, and then everybody around you, whenever they got problems, you're too self-caring. You're just gone. Just leave the situation. I'm not going to mess with these germs. I'm taking care. That's not really healing. There is some element of being a healing agent, a healing force, right? So your environment is also experiencing your ability as a healer to repair, to mend, to make things feel good and healthy, okay? So that's your East. So the last of the skills, virtues, powers on the East now is at 4 o'clock, and that is sincerity. So honesty, healing, sincerity. These are the powers of the East. The last one, sincerity. Rate yourself 1 to 10. How well do you keep your word? How well do you bridge the gap between how you really feel inside and how you meet the world outside? Are you able to get the feet of your mind down on the ground, at the bottom of the ocean of things inside of you, and see where you're really at? It's like honesty, but it's not just watching and knowing the truth, it's really joining, it's closing the gap. And so gauge your sincerity. It's also closing the gap, even in times of social distancing, with another person, whether they're high or low. It's not just empathy, it's not just being able to go with them where they are. That's kind of a part of it, but it's do you actually move? Are you capable of that real movement? You can say, oh yeah, I see you're going through a hard time. Sucks to be you. Whereas a person with sincerity could even say the same thing. Wow, I see you're really in a hard time. Like, I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for your suffering. And just it's not just that I dropped my voice. I put my heart in it. I joined things. I closed the gap. And I think you probably felt very different things in those same words. So sincere, it actually means without wax from the Latin, because they would build these sculptures or these roads, and they'd fill the cracks in with wax. And when it would get super hot, you didn't build it sincerely. It wasn't a sincere. Peace and love to the Italians. Stay strong, brothers, sisters, mothers and fathers. All right, next, we're moving from 4 o'clock down to 6 o'clock. Nope, 5 o'clock. After 4 is 5. So 5 o'clock. Now we've kind of done all this internal. We begin to move our quest external. It's from yin to yang. Here we begin the extroversion, extending, the opening, okay? So yeah, I'll explain more about that later. Here, at number 5, gauge yourself 1 to 10 on your ability to demonstrate, to show up to different moments and perform. And this is really about that that thought to thing, having an idea, having an intention, and then being able to fully follow through with your word. Sometimes it means actually overextending yourself, because maybe inside you don't feel ready yet, and yet you still have to show up. Even in that moment, can you get up on the stage and do what has to be done? And it's kind of like where sincerity is closing this gap, getting things flush and like joined, and like I'm with myself, there's no wax in here, there's no falsehood. Demonstration then starts to open it up a little bit. It doesn't actually require perfect sincerity to be able to demonstrate. You can show up, you can show off, and actually lack sincerity entirely. The healthiest, the strongest capacity for demonstration is when you can summon all of you. You bring it all. When the mic's there, like, watch out! All right? You show up, bringing it. If you just bring it a little bit, but there's still a big gap inside, but you at least bring it, you're 5+. Does that make sense? If you're not feeling it inside, if you can't get yourself there to show up, if you're not really feeling it from the inside, that's actually, while that's a great, quality as far as being sincere, being honest, here for demonstration, which is the beginning of action, it's a weakness, right? This is where you lack power if you can't show up, even if you're not totally ready. Okay, so gauge yourself. That would be under 5. If you should, but you can't get over these things inside that stop you from just doing it. Okay? Moving on. Number 6. Now we're pointing due south, right back there, right back there. What about your willpower? Okay? Gauge your own willpower, 1 to 10. And I'm talking about perseverance. I'm talking about that grit. I'm talking about that thing that won't stop, that battery inside, that will keep going, that will endure. That also deals with your sense of economy too, doesn't it? Because will isn't everlasting. Everybody can say, like, I never give up. Like, you can say that, but like, cut the fucking BS, man. Like, everybody's got a point where they go like that. Like, I'm going back. I'm going home. And what's yours? Will you see the endeavor all the way through? At what point do you stop? How much juice is there in the tank? How much physical actual juice is there in the tank? Because as much will and grit and, sort of attitude you got to get all the way through, you're working through an animal. You're working through a physical machine. And if that machine lacks power, lacks will, lacks fuel, I don't care. You're going to be pushing that thing. You're going to be dragging it. You're going to be pushing your car to the gas station and probably having to suck down some overpriced will, overpriced fuel to just get your body running again. That's you're not doing great. That's cool. Maybe give yourself 5, 6 tops, not more than 7, if you're not also upping the actual reserves, the fuel and the power of the physical machine. You follow so far? We already did half of this, a little bit more than half. We're at 6, moving to 7. You gauge yourself on 6, will, 7. Give yourself a gauge now, 1, 2, 10 on number 7, which is your ability to teach. So taking the skills that you have and sharing them. Expanding this bubble around you, inviting others into it and supporting them, beginning to support them, beginning to not only know what you know, but know how to help others know that too. Those are different skills. Knowing something is one thing. Being able to get others to know it is a very different skill. And if you're concerned and interested in expansion, in creation, amplification, action, then you got to multiply your body, right? You got to be more than one body, and that's done through teaching. Okay? So how well can you get stuff across to people and level them up? You know what I mean? How well do you level others up? Get them to where you're at. 1 to 10. Okay? And that does it for the South. All right, friends, at last we have made it to the West. And what awaits us in the West? Well, maybe you're starting to sense this trajectory, this sort of, hierarchy of skills, of powers. We're now at number 8, okay? So number 8, we're over here headed to the West. Vision. Give yourself a 1 to 10. How well can you look with more than these physical eyes and see things, right? See things in social dynamics. See things within yourself and your efforts, right? See the patterns that other people might miss. I did this 2 weeks in a row, but then I changed this and now I'm not feeling as good about it. Okay, if I just make that little tweak. So that's seeing something. That pattern was there, but you have to have the eyes to be able to observe it, right? And then draw from that new intel and then new direction. So that vision, it's also that actual vision, like having a target and your desire to attain a goal. How strong is that in you? And then how strong is your ability to find the way there? Not just to dream about all these cool things on the horizon, but to see the actual way fucking there. Can you see it? Or is that super clear, like, oh yeah, it'd be amazing if I could do this, this, and this. Well, I don't fucking know how to do that. Or is it more like, I can't see shit beyond like this afternoon, like even this afternoon, like I knew I had something, right? So gauge yourself. Where are you at? How strong is the vision? How's your power of vision? Number 9, facing due west. We again address one of these cardinal powers, and that is where we had healing in the east. We have co-creation in the west at 9 o'clock. The ability to create together. You understand what co-creation means. How strong is that for you? Are you great solo, but then once the group jumps in, you're like, I don't know what to do, like too many cooks? Or do you know how to delegate? Are you capable of being delegated to? Or do you got to control the whole thing yourself? Or are you comfortable sharing and everybody winning together? How comfortable are you really with everybody being victorious, and how much can you support everybody as they're trying to win as well? Do you really believe everybody can win? And do you put energy towards that? Or are you just making sure, that you win, right? Because now we're in the West, we're completing this circle, which means we've really started to transcend these personal challenges because we have all of this personal power, and we're starting to be able to really impact the world around us. Okay, so that's what completing this circle points at, this complete person who can take care of themselves, not complete, but having all these strengths, this totality that can be flexed. All right, so you got your West, you got your co-creation, 1 to 10. We just have one left. You ready? Gauge yourself. Number 10, duty. Not duty, not do-do, duty. Do you do what you got to do? I said, do you do what you got to do? At the end of the day, laying in bed, are you marching things along? As much as, the yogi in me hates the sort of, I gotta check one box after the next to feel that life is properly progressing. The survivor in me, the leader in me, the visionary knows that it isn't all about the moment-to-moment experience. That is so much of everything, but I could do so many different things in this moment and enjoy it. In fact, planning for the future might not necessarily be the most enjoyable thing I could do with this moment, right? We know this. So how can we enjoy the breath, right? That's number 11. That's like the beginning of the whole journey. And then it ends with duty. Those are back to back. Yeah, that's everything. Breath is our basic responsibility to the body, to life, to survival. Duty is the final responsibility as a human being. Do you stand up to it? How well do you stand up to it? Okay? 12 powers, now you gauged yours. Tell me about it. Tell me about your powers. All right, now you've done it. Now you got the scores that tell you about your powers. All right, so we're going to take those 12 points of power and find out about your 4 archetypes. So you're going to take the points from 11, 12, and 1. The points from breathing, ownership, and movement, add those up. Right? That's your northern quadrant. Honesty, healing, sincerity, add those up. Demonstration, will, and teaching, add these up. So 1 total, 1 total, 1 total, 1 total for the West. Make sense? So, what'd you come up with? Now, if your high score was in the North, what does that make you? A student. Primary strengths in the skill set of the student. And actually, I qualify my student archetype as student protector. That fundamental ability and capacity to protect life, right? This is what we need first. You can regulate your nervous system. You can move your body. You can take care of your shit, right? You can take care of yourself. That's the student. It's not always the most showy, but it's watching, paying attention, learning, getting smarter, more efficient, more strategic, more careful, taking care of things, really learning about how everything can happen. All right, so bravo if you got big guns in the fucking North. If the North happens to be your weakest, take a look at that. That's kind of the foundation for this whole system, right? You could be a brilliant leader. You could see things nobody else sees, right? But if your system keeps failing you, if your nervous system, your body just don't support you, your environment isn't supportive, and you can't figure out your bills, you can't figure out your fundamental survival, your food, it's gonna suck to have all those heightened powers as a leader in the West. Right? Because you don't have anything to support them. Okay, so North. That's what you are, Northerners. Easterners. You are the healers. Healers / seekers. So the truth seekers, the ones who prioritize all of this internal heart communication. Right? It's this nebulous language that healers can speak with such fluency. And when you meet another Easterner who can communicate with the heart, who knows the language of healing, who knows the language of honesty and sincerity, it's so refreshing. It's suddenly like, oh, you speak my fucking language. And when somebody can't do those things, their skills their powers are a little weaker on that side. They're not comfortable with transparency. They're not comfortable giving you that healing energy. They're not super comfortable with deep empathy, let alone, really expressing themselves and having that powerful sincerity. You're not going to get the same things from somebody who's weakest on the East, right? So this is stuff we already know. Let's check it out if the South happens to be your strong suit. You are a warrior producer. So making that product, getting that content out, doing what you have to do, getting it done, action is your power, right? So you show up regardless how you feel inside. Like maybe you know how to rally yourself on the inside. Maybe you're strong in the North and the East and the South. You're just killing it. I'd wager you're killing it in life, right? You're doing well. Because if you have that natural and healthy internal fuel and you take care of yourself and you're also strong with action, what do you lack? You are so good. Maybe you lack a little bit of that Western clarity. right? The leader. I already gave that one away. The leader and sage. Because you can do all of these things, but you may not know for what, or why, or to what end. And those are the things that the leader specializes in. They're looking into that distant horizon, and they see things the rest of us can't. I mean, I'm a little bit of a leader, so I can. And I'm sure many of you can. The leader's eyes, they're in there. We have all of these powers, people. We have all 360 degrees. We are all built with this human anatomy. It's just about how you train. So, now that you have been fully filled in on the MTrain Legend, I'd say we're getting closer to actually digging into some of that training. Wouldn't you? And so the last piece of our orientation then is this final little quiz, where now that we know the northeast, southwest, we're going to just see how it relates to your physical body. So I want you to do just a little assessment here. So the north specializes in the push strength. Each of these archetypes is not only characterized by these ideas, it's also characterized by symbolic representatives. So at the base level of this mountain we're ascending, on the north side it's represented by a tiger and a bear. Actually, the very first beast of this, it's kind of a pantheon, is the bear. It's where we start, just getting into that cozy, heavy body. We just want to get into it. We want to feel cozy in our own skin, at home in our own form, in our own animal. And then once we are, we can start to flex it and work with it to become a lean and dangerous machine. And that's when we get all of that, the hunting cats, right? That low pecs, front of the delts, tricep, push muscles, push. So how are your shoulders? How's your chest? How's your ability to push yourself up off the ground when you got put down on it, right? You can pop and come back up like a weeble wobble. Drop down, pop, here I am again. Or maybe you're hunting low. You can get yourself low like the student and wait. Hold yourself there. Wah, wah, wah. Okay? So, how are your push muscles? East. How are your pull muscles? So your biceps, your lats, even your trapezius, these upper back sort of wings, right? How are your wings? Can you lift yourself up? These also have a very direct relationship, interestingly enough, with breathing, because the position of our shoulders, this entire shoulder complex, is doing a lot with the spine to position the organs, the lungs, in different ways. You draw the shoulders back, you're bringing your lungs out. Feel that range change. You close, you slide the shoulder blades out, caving the chest in. I can't breathe as much this way, but actually I can expand my lungs into my upper back. So what we're doing with these muscles is really kind of, finding those breezes that we can glide on. We're setting our posture, our position, our vantage point to glide on the breezes moving through our chest, right? This chest cavity, or the whole torso. So, how are your pull muscles? South, how are the legs? How's the lower body strength? Quads, glutes, everything, the whole thing, the joints. That's also a matter here. How are the joints in each of these major areas? Okay, so south, the warrior, producer, is dealing with that lower body strength. So the east, obviously, I think you probably could, well, maybe not, guess with the air, with the wings, etc., birds, right? So you have the owl and the hawk represented in the east at this base level of the mountain. Now in the south, You have a deer and a wolf. Those mobile creatures, those long, strong legs that cover huge distances. How mobile are you? How strong is your warrior and your ability to take yourself places and to do the deed, to get it done, to, do what it takes. That's a lot of lower body there to drive you. Finally, west, the core and the lower back. So especially the spine, all those muscles along the spine, especially around the lower back and the abdomen. All these core muscles. This way that you hold the center of this structure up. How healthy is that? How healthy is the lower back? How healthy are those core muscles right now? The stronger they are, the more you can actually let other muscles relax and not always work. They don't always need to. These guys pick up the load and make life a lot easier. So, northeast, southwest. How are your beasts? The west. Any guesses? That's right. Water beasts. Water beasts. Water beasts. See my spine? My abs? Okay. So you got dolphins and turtles over here on the west side at the beginning of this journey. This is actually just the first tier of the mountain, though, that we're talking about, northeast, southwest. When you complete all of these 12 powers, when you've strengthened them to a new degree, we naturally level up to a higher altitude on the mountain. Still northeast, southwest, but now we're like 10,000 feet up. So what beasts are those? What strengths are those? Similar, but stronger. We'll get into more of those later. But for now, you know about your archetypes, you know a little bit about your beasts, you know a little bit about, we've looked at our strengths physically too. So we are ready to train. It's going to be a gentle start. I'm treating this a little bit like couch potato ninja sort of training. And I really want you to go step by step with me, feeling comfortable in the body, going from that bear into the tiger. So, you down for some training? Next video's got your name on it. Congrats on finishing the Mindful Moves Dojo in the Cloud orientation. A look at the MTrain Legend. Strong work, strong work, strong work, friends! Nicely done.